Okay, so we have an application that records our mood and then persists it in a database for us so that we can hang on to that information. Now, we're going to add an attribute to the mood so that we can store more information than we currently do. I've decided that I'm going to add a weather attribute so that when I log my mood, I can also log what the weather was like at the time that I logged it, just in case there's some information to be gleaned there. So I'm going to start in the MoodEntry fragment, which is the fragment that governs the form where you enter your mood in the first place. Down here in this method submit mood entry, which we call when we click the log mood button, I make a mood entry and then I submit it to the database helper. I'd like to add an attribute to my mood entry, and I'm going to call it weather. So that doesn't exist yet, so I'm going to put my cursor on it and hit Option Enter and choose the option Create Member Property, val weather, and we're going to say that this initializes to an unknown. So now I'm going to create an enum to store my weather, and I'm going to keep it in this file because I keep my other enums in this file. And the options are going to be unknown, sunny, cloudy, and rainy. I know there are more kinds of weather than this, but this is just for the purposes of illustration. So now we need to add that to our view. So I'm going to go to my MoodEntry XML, and I think I'm going to put this in between my in between my list of checkboxes and my my notes. So let me make another text view here, and I'm gonna have this say, what was the weather like today? And or what is the weather like right now? What is the weather like right now? Okay, so this is currently a hard-coded string. I'm going to hit Option Enter, extract a string resource for that. And now I'm going to make some radio buttons here. Now, I'm going to use the example from the Android developers documentation to make my radio buttons. And they are going to be cloudy, rainy, and sunny. So we'll say sunny, and then we have to give these IDs. So this is going to be sunny, radio sunny, radio cloudy, and radio rainy. So the indentation looks a little weird on this, so I'm going to hit Command Option L, which is going to auto format all my code. Cute. Right. So then in the documentation, it shows that there's this on click on radio button clicked. And let's see what we do here. So we call on radio button clicked, and we put this in our fragment. So let me stick this in our fragment. MoodEntry Fragment. So we'll come back to this MoodEntry.weather in a second. So let's make on radio button clicked. If it's checked, then we got to get its ID. And I'm actually gonna have this all happen on the same line. And I'm also going to have all this happen on the same line. So I'm using Control-Shift-J to put these on one line. Then I'm going to use Command-D to duplicate that line. Great, so there are three options, right? Radio, rainy, radio, sunny, and radio cloudy. Sweet. Okay, so on the radio button is clicked. The view is the radio button. Great, 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 great. So now we would set our weather. So let's do that by making late init var weather. Let's call it, we're going to make it a weather item. And then we're going to say weather equals weather dot rainy, weather. So now I'm going to grab this, I'm going to copy it, and then for each of these, I'm going to hit Control G to select each of these. I'm going to come here, Option up, up, up to select all this stuff, Command V to paste, and then I want that one to be sunny, and I want that one to be cloudy. Auto format fine. I'm going to go with the convention that it wants here. Okay, rainy, sunny, cloudy, rainy, sunny, cloudy, good. So I think what we're actually going to do is rather than make this a late init, we're going to make it optional. We're only going to assign it under certain circumstances. Property must be initialized or be abstract. Let's actually put it back the way it was. So we late initialize that. Oh no, you know what we can do? I like this idea better. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to initialize it to unknown. Weather dot unknown. Great. So now we have this default value of unknown, which is good. Okay. So now we are going to assign our weather to our mood entry, and we are going to go take a look. I used Command B to get over here, and I see that it's a val, and I'm going to make it a var. Good. I use Command open bracket to get back to the code I was previously editing. So that looks good. Okay, great. So now that's good. So now we have our mood entry and it's got weather in it. Excellent. So now if we go to our, what's the next thing that happens? We set this weather. Great. Then we do the database helper. We initialize this mood entry SQLite database helper. And we call this save method and we pass the mood entry in. So let's take a look at the save method. I use Command B to get to the declaration there. So it looks like I make a database. Great. I do these content values. That's good. Values.put mood entry column mood, mood entry dot mood dot toString. So it looks like I am going to have to make a column in my database, and I'm going to put my new thing in there because I have mood, I have logged out, I have notes, I have pastimes. It looks like I need to make another one of these for my weather. So I'm going to make one called MoodEntry column weather. And I'm going to put in there MoodEntry weather toString. Yeah. So, great. So we need to add this variable. So I'm going to go to these other variables and hit Command B to see where they're named. And then I'm going to hit, great. So I'm going to hit Command open bracket to get back to where I was. I'm going to click on that and do, whoops, Option Enter. Because I want to create, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is hit Option up, up, up. I'm going to copy that name. And then I'm going to go down to where all these are declared. And I'm going to paste. So I'm going to do Command Z to duplicate, Option up to select all, Command V, column weather, and I'm going to call it weather. And then I have this all MoodColumns thing that I'm going to add it to. That seems like it should be done. Where is this used? Option F7. Okay, so in my Finder thing, I see all MoodColumns is used in here on line 52. Database.query. So it's in this method called list the mood entries. And I query the table, and it looks like I get all the columns back from that table. Well, that's good, because then when we get all of our stuff back out, we're going to want the weather to be there so we can display it. So we should, this was right. We needed to add it to all mood columns. Great. So then we have to create our table, and we need to add this item to our table. So now we put the value in the column right there, but we need to actually add the column to the database. And so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to say MoodEntry column notes text. I want to do basically the same thing. I want it to be a text attribute. We're going to store the weather as a string in our SQLite database. So I'm going to duplicate this line, and I'm going to say MoodEntry column weather. So it's worth noting that this right here is this like string constructor that gives us a literal SQL command. We use a SQLite database under the hood on Android, and a SQLite database takes SQL. So we make this command that creates the table, MoodEntry table name, and then we have our integer primary key that auto increments. This is our ID. And then we have our mood column, which we store as a string, that's text in SQL. Logged at, which we store as an integer. We store that as milliseconds since Epic. And then column notes, another string. Weather, another string. And pastimes we store also as a string. Good. So we create this. So here's the thing, is that when we already have the app, and it already has the database created, which was made with a certain schema, and that schema didn't include the weather column. And so if we need to add the weather column, if we need to change the schema, then we need to somehow make sure that this SQL gets rerun. And the way that we do that is we change the database version. So currently on line 72, the database version is set to 1. I'm going to change that to 2. I have to update this version every time I update my database schema, because that tells the Android app, suppose somebody already has it installed and then they reinstall it and you made changes to the database schema, it's important that their app know, hey, you need to update your database schema. So, and we can see where that's used by coming to database version and hitting Option F7. And we can see that when we initialize our MoodEntry SQLite database helper, we pass in the database version. And if the database version is higher than the version of the database that's already been instantiated, this onUpgrade method is going to run. And it does what it sounds like it does. It upgrades the database. Sweet. Sweet. Okay. So now we have our new column, and we are sticking our data in the column. So then we need to get the data back out on the other end. So how would we do that? Well, there's this method here, list mood entries. Let me just look at all the methods in this class real quick. So I'm hitting Command minus to collapse each of these methods. I want to get a quick kind of look at what's going on here. Another way to do this would be to come over to your menus, and Command 7 gives us our structure menu. So I can look at the MoodEntry SQLite database helper, and I can see what the methods are. So great. We have on create, on upgrade, save, and list the mood entries. List the mood entries sounds like the one where we get the data back out, right? So here's list mood entries. We see that we're querying the database and returning a cursor. Interesting. So where do we use this method? I'm going to click on list mood entries. I'm going to hit Option F7, and I have this menu at the bottom, and it shows me this is used one place. It's used in a method called fetch mood data in our history fragment, which sounds about right, right? Because we have this, let me dismiss this dialog. We've got this history tab that shows our mood, so that's probably what that is. Great, so let's take a look at it. I'm going to click on it, I'm going to hit enter, and it shows up here, fetch mood data, the cursor, so it lists the mood entries. And then I get the column names. I do something with the cursor okay, so this is no mood entries. And then otherwise, I have this log message just telling me the mood entries have been fetched. Well, that sounds right. So when the mood entries have been fetched, that's when I want to make my that's when I want to get the weather out. So well, cursor moved to next. So it looks like cursor has all the mood entries in it, and then we instantiate these entries in here. Good, so I think that's what we want to do, right? So let's duplicate this line and add a comma to the previous line. Cursor.get string. Yeah, we stored our weather as a string. And I need to get the weather column, which I don't have. I have all the others. So let me come up here to where I get the column names. And I'm going to make a weather one. From weather column, mood entry column. Where's weather? Here. Here's weather. Good. Great. So now I'm going to hit, I see I have an error thing here. Something's wrong. I'm going to hit F2. That always takes me to the next problem in the code. None of the following functions can be called with the arguments supplied. Initializers. Oh, I don't have a weather in my constructor. So let me add a weather to my constructor. So I'm going to hit Command B, and I'm going to choose the constructor. And I'm going to select I want to add something to this constructor. So I'm going to add weather, and it's going to be a string in this case. Good. Okay. So I set logdat, I set the notes, I set the recent past times. That all looks good. And now I want to set also my weather. This weather. Now why is it upset? F2. Type mismatch, weather string. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to get weather value of the weather string. Because Kotlin automatically assumes when I make an enum like this, that it can represent each of these as strings, which is how we saved it. Okay, looking good. I'm going to hit Command back bracket to get back to where I was editing code. Okay, so now I have my weather constructor. That looks great. And so finally, we need to display the weather in the view. So let's take a look at where the view is. So I have this view, item, list, MoodEntry. And I like to see the code and the screen at the same time. So let me get this bigger. Cool. So then, let's say I want to make a text view that's going to display the weather in here. I'm going to put it under this recent activities text view. So I'm going to copy the recent activities text view. I'm going to paste it. And then I have to change this to weather label. Wrap content, wrap content. That all looks good. These constraints are not right, so I'm going to get rid of the constraints. And then I'm going to constrain it to stuff here in a second. But I want to first say, let's say sunny here. So I'm going to start the text as sunny, but I'm going to set it to be tools text because that means that it's like sample text and it's not going to accidentally show up on the actual device. Okay, so I have my weather label. It's not constrained, so now I'm going to come over here. I'm just going to move it so I can see it. And I'm going to constrain the bottom of it, or the top of it to the bottom of recent activities. And then I'm going to set that to like 8. And then I'm going to constrain the left side of it to the right side of this image. And let's see how far away from it everybody else is. It looks like everybody else is 16 to the right of it. So I'm also going to make it 16 to the right. So it should line up, its left edge with the left edge of recent activities. And it's going to be 8 points below recent activities. I don't know if this view is going to be very pretty. That's okay. That's okay for now. This is for demonstrative purposes. Good. Okay, so I got my text view. I got my ID. This is the weather label. The weather label. So now I'm going to hit Command Up to go to the file name, and I'm going to go Option F7 to see where that file name is used. And it's used in this thing called a MoodEntry Adapter. Interesting. So I'm going to hit Enter. And I see it on line 38. We inflate this layout. So let's take a look at this adapter. So now I'm looking at my project structure here, my structure menu, and I see in my MoodEntry Adapter, I've got my constructor, my context, boring, my mood entries. This is probably a list of the entries that are being displayed if this thing has all of the items in it and it's filling all those little item layouts. Cool. And then it's got this inner class MoodEntry view holder. What's in there? MoodEntry, do. So this looks like it's got views And it looks like it's the views from our item layout. So we probably need to make our view in here. So let's do that. We're going to call ours the weather text view. Var weather text view. Oh, it doesn't have it. So let's make it weather text view. And then it was, what did I name it? Fragment MoodEntry. No, item list MoodEntry. Entry mood, entry date time, recent pastimes label. We called it weather label. Oh no. Yeah. Weather label. That's what it's called. Weather label. Yes. Cool. Okay, so where do we use these? Let's look where we use this by going to it, hitting Option F7, enter. Oh, we use it here on line 51 in the on-bind view holder. So what's happening? We get the mood entry, and we get the stuff out of it. That looks pretty good. Okay, so let's do that. Holder.weather text view text mood entry dot. Oh no, we need mood entries dot get position, because that's going to give us the mood entry at the specific position that we are filling right now. And I'm going to get a hold of the weather. And it's mad because it wants a character sequence and we're giving it a weather. So I'm going to stringify it with toString. Cool. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the build is running. Let's pull up command 6, pull up our log cat. Come on. Okay. So check it out. This is our form. How are you doing? I'm doing great. I recently hydrated. I birdwatched. I slept. And the weather is sunny. Oh, it's mad at us. Could not find method on radio button clicked in a parent or ancestor context for Android on click attribute defined on the view class com.google.java. Illegal state exception. Material button with ID radio sunny. Well, how about we do it the old-fashioned way? We're going to go into the MoodEntry fragment. And rather than do on radio button clicked like this, we are going to obtain each of our radio buttons and say, well, actually, no. Let's take a look at this error message. What's it saying? Illegal state exception could not find the method on radio button clicked with a view. in a parent or ancestor context for Android onClick attribute defined on view class of a radio button with ID radio Sunny. Interesting. So let's take another look at this documentation. The method you declare in the Android onClick attribute must have a signature exactly as shown above. Okay, that's fine. And it has to be within the activity that hosts the layout. We put it in the fragment. Within the activity that hosts the layout, the following method handles the click event for both radio buttons. Does it work if I just stick it in the activity? Okay, so currently I'm in the MoodEntry fragment, which gets launched from our main activity. Do. So if I put all this stuff in here, what I want to do is I want my dialog fragment to have the weather, not the activity. So let's try it. Late init var dialog fragment, which is an instance of the MoodEntry fragment. So we're going to set that there, and it's going to be the MoodEntry fragment. And then we're going to say for each of these, Control G, left arrow, dialog fragment dot weather is equal to weather.sunny. All right, let's see how that does. Install. I'm going to be honest, I don't like this organization of the code. I would like this radio button clicky thing to live inside of the fragment. The reason that it can't is because we employed this little trick with the MoodEntry fragment where we set the onClick listener in the XML. Typically, when we set onClick listeners, we do them programmatically, like you see between lines 36 and 43 here in the MoodEntry fragment. We get access to a view, and then we set an onClick listener on it. We could do that and move this code back into our fragment, but I would really like to try this XML way because I don't typically do it this way, and I think it would be good to be knowledgeable about both ways. Okay, let's try again. I'm not as happy this time, but I slept and I stretched, let's say. Let's click Sunny. All right, well, it's not mad at us anymore. That's good. Record. What does our log cat say? Looking good. Let's look at our history. Oh, check it out. So today, my recent activities were sleep and stretching, and I have Sunny. I got my little view right there. We did it.